Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko, joined once again by my good friend, Dr. Issues.
Hello, everyone.
I'm feeling much better this week. Apologies for last week. No new episode. I'm terribly sorry about that. It was a situation. I had no voice by the time we usually record on the weekends, and between the cold and volunteering for Extra Life, I was, nobody wanted to listen to me try to talk like an entire episode sounding like this. It would have grated on me to speak that way, much less your, listeners trying to hear it. So,
yeah, I could imagine it must have taken a lot out of you because you talk nonstop anyway.
I am loquacious. Yes, I concede. But at least when I was there for the convention, it was for a good cause. I was there volunteering for Extra Life. Quick plug, by the way, I'm still taking donations to shave my head. If you go to extra-life.org and you look for my name, Anthony Sitko, Sytko, you will find my fundraising page, which is also linked on our website, capesonthecouch.live, and through our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. You can find the links there to donate. All of the money goes directly to Children's Specialized Hospital, which is the Children's Miracle Network affiliate. And if I raise $1,000 in the month of September, I will shave my head. So there's your incentive.
Absolutely. I want to see this guy look like, I don't know, Lex Luthor, Kurt Angle. I don't know. What's he going to look like? I can't quite picture it, to be honest with you.
I can't. It's going to be very intriguing. I have not had my hair this potentially short since this guy Fabian in freshman year of college said, "Oh, yeah, I can give you a real good fade." And he cut way too short and he brushes me off. Mind you, I can't see what he's doing, but he's buzzing and he's like, "Yeah, let me know if you want me to take any more off." And I look in the mirror and I have like no hair left. And I was like, I'm good. I'm fine. Thank you. No more hair loss, please. God's already taking it from me to begin with. So I'm just going to finish off the job. The other thing I want to mention before next week's episode is because we don't know who we're doing just yet for next week. And that is up to you, the listeners, in conjunction with the next episode tying in with the Walking Dead Season 9 premiere. We have our listener poll. You can go to our website. It's the top pinned tweet on our Twitter account. It's also on our Facebook page. It's a Google form. You just fill it out. Do you want us to analyze Rick Grimes, Negan, or the Governor in conjunction for our October 3rd episode right before the Walking Dead Season 9 premiere? And I know, Doc, you are all in on Negan.
Yeah, I am eternally grateful for everyone so far that has voted for Negan. Unfortunately, I couldn't get approved the second question for the poll, which was, why is Negan the greatest character to choose? But you're doing a good job.
In any event, you can go on, and I think it would really throw Doc for a loop if you went with, say, Rick, who, again, is my personal pick. My pick, because Rick has been there literally since the beginning, and he's just gone through an amazing character arc. And this is comics, mind you. We're reviewing comics Rick, comics Negan, and comics Governor, not the show. We'll mention the show, of course, but the focus of the episode is going to be on the comic version of these characters. So that's on our website. Get in those votes now. And then after that, we've got two president picks, DC villains back to back. It's Hank Henshaw and Vandal Savage. So that's going to sort of tie in with the DC CW shows that are going to be coming out in the month of October.
Yay! I'm seriously excited for both, but I have to say, Hank Henshaw, did not see that coming.
Yeah, Brian, our president level patron, selected Hank Henshaw, so that one's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. But right now, we're going to do the one that we were supposed to do last week, the one that's going to tie in with the Gifted Season 2 premiere, which was last night. We are going to be covering the Stepford Cuckoos.
Of all the names to pick, the Cuckoos, which has a horrible pejorative when it comes to mental health, and yet cuckoo clocks are some of the most intricate machines that have ever been created. So I'm not sure how that happened.
Yeah, the name was given to them by their classmates, but we'll get into that. So the Stepford Cuckoos were created by Grant Morrison in New X-Men number 118 from November of 2001, and they were introduced as identical quintuplets as proteges of Emma Frost. There was Sophie, Phoebe, Mindee, Celeste, and Esme. Now, interestingly enough, Grant Morrison intended that the first letter from each of their names was meant to spell out spice, but he left the book before Mindy's name was created or named. So I forget who the follow-up writer was, and he gave her the name Mindee. So then the subsequent writer said, no, Grant actually wanted them to spell out spice. So Mindy's real name is Irma. I don't know how you get Mindee from Irma, but
I don't know. How do you get John from Jack?
Yeah, that's true. I have an Uncle John, but his siblings call him Jack. And, JFK was known as Jack Kennedy. So I don't know where Jack comes from John, but, or Ted from Edward. I don't know. That's another one. There's some interesting nicknames. I don't know. People call me Tony, but that one sort of makes sense. In any event, so they were referred to as the Stepford Cuckoos by classmates. They preferred to be called the Five-in-One because they shared a psychic ability. They shared telekinetic abilities, or telepathic abilities, excuse me. And they had a sort of hive mind amongst the five of them that if they worked in concert, they were much more powerful than any individual member.
Yeah, I wonder how that would impact privacy. Could you imagine going on a date, and all of your siblings know exactly what's going on? That
gets tied in. So Esme had a crush on Kato Anishiwa, who was one of the students at the school. He turned out to be Stuff. That's his name, Stuff, an advanced scout for the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. And side note, Stuff looked like a member of the Amoeba Boys from Powerpuff Girls, which was just strange. I don't know where the character design came up, but he literally just looked like a floating thing, and it looked nothing like any of the Shi'ar that I had seen previously in the books.
Right. I'm glad they didn't give him the Amoeba Boys level of intelligence, though, for anyone that's seen the Powerpuff Girls. I think that was one of the best parts about it. They had these long delayed pauses, and you could tell they just weren't on the same level as everyone else.
What do you mean? I don't get it.
Having a little trouble there? Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry, I was a big fan of the original run of the show. So Stuff, a.k.a. Kato, was an advanced scout for the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. They attacked the Xavier Institute. So all five girls then combined their psychic powers to help defeat Kid Omega, who was leading a rebellion of students at the school. Now, here's where things get a little dark and tragic. Sophie was under the influence of a drug called Kick, which amplifies mutant abilities, and so she's now amped up trying to help defeat Kid Omega, and she dies as a result. And then it's later revealed that she did it because Esme wanted her to, and Esme was on Kick. So now Esme has this guilt for Sophie dying, and that really messes with her head. So the four remaining Cuckoos blame Emma Frost, who then they tell Jean Grey that Emma's having a psychic affair with Scott. And we covered the Scott, Jean, Emma scenario in our Scott Summers episode, and I'm not going to get into that. Scott is a dick.
What? You were so close. You were so close.
I'm sorry. It was a knee-jerk reaction. No, I kid. Mostly. So then Esme tries to murder Emma, and then she flees the school because she's still dealing with the guilt and the PTSD of Sophie's death is sort of lingering over her, and it's hanging over her head, and she can't deal with that. So she leaves the school. But then she returns alongside Xorn and the Brotherhood of Mutants. Xorn, at this point, was Magneto. We're not going to get into Xorn because that's a whole other thing. She turns on Xorn, and he kills her.
Oh, no. We've come full circle. You were trying to manipulate your sister. You get her killed, and then you're feeling guilt about it. But then you say, no, I still want to do other things and really cause some problems. But then you have guilt about that, and you die as well. Yeah, good learning there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody comes away from this looking good, aside maybe from the three remaining siblings. So, in M-Day, the Scarlet Witch, no more mutants, depowers, leave 198 mutants with their abilities. The Cuckoos are among the 198 who retain their powers. So Emma Frost then says, well, there's only 198. I need a new X-Men team. Everybody fight, and we'll see who's the strongest. So it becomes like a Survivor Series, or a King of the Ring type tournament where it's just, okay, you two square off, and whoever's left, then you fight the next one. And I don't think it's the best way to establish togetherness. If you have only 198 of you, why not just work together? You've clearly found survival of the fittest. Why are you going to further force this Darwinian situation?
Hey, remember, they're all mutants anyway. Mutations have to continue if we're to survive in a changing environment, right? Of course, it's not supposed to happen in the span of, I don't know, several days as opposed to lifetimes, but hey, I can see where she's coming from.
Yeah, on maybe a very condensed time frame this works, but anyway, during the Warsong event, we discover the Stepford Cuckoos' origins. They were genetic clones born of Emma Frost's stolen eggs by Dr. John Sublime, who I guess was practicing Santeria as part of Weapon Plus. I had to. Okay. It was there.
Okay, then I'm going to add a comment. If they stole Emma Frost's eggs, were they frozen? Get it? Frozen? Frost?
Yes. Okay. Let it go. They were designated Weapon 14. And there were thousands of these girls that were incubated and artificially aged. 5 of them were placed in the Xavier School to infiltrate. And so during the Warsong event, the Phoenix Force, because, can't have an X-Men event without the Phoenix Force popping up. So during the event, the Phoenix Force activates the Weapon Plus nanotech inside the bodies of all of the girls, including Sophie and Esme. So they're now resurrected. They're back from the dead, and this activates the hivemind, which is the 1,000-in-1. So now there's not just 5 cuckoos, there are 1,000 of them, and they are all psychically linked. So Celeste takes control of the Phoenix Force, and she traps it inside her sister's diamond hearts, because that's one of the side effects and mutations, because they are clones of Emma Frost. Emma Frost, of course, has the ability to turn her entire organic body into diamonds. The girls can do this as well, and now their hearts are diamonds. And now I'm on a horse. And if you're listening to this podcast, you can smell like Old Spice too.
In the comics, they describe this also as the point where the cuckoos lose their ability to express emotion because of the classic, all of your emotions come from your heart, as opposed to the fact that they're psychics and they have the ability to use their brains, which is the true source of emotion, and I'll just go with it.
It's comics. Don't think too hard. So during the Utopia event, the girls then lost their Phoenix abilities and they became depressed because they had these godlike powers and now they don't. So afterwards, the 3 girls are determining whether they stay in Utopia or they go back to the school. Mindee and Celeste wanted to stay on Utopia. Phoebe decides to go back to the school. Celeste wanted to stay because she had a crush on Quentin Quire, who I just think is a cool character. I dig him. He's just like a punk, and he just, anarchy, and I don't know. It's just, I don't know why. I'm way too old to be identifying with the rebellious teenager type character, but
I feel like this is all Sweet Valley High on steroids,
Wow. Okay. Holy smoke. First off, you're dating yourself there, son, and as am I with the Sweet Valley High references.
As opposed to practicing Santeria with Dr. Sublime? Yeah, real timely.
All right, touche. Sweet Valley High, though, man, that's like my sister's. It's like Sweet Valley High and Babysitters Club. Like, why don't you just talk about that as well?
Given the types of things we're going to be talking about, is it really that far off?
Yeah, all right, you're right. When you're right, you're right. So Mutant Revolution is the next X-Men event, and the girls become a little more independent. This is where we sort of see a difference in the physical aspects, not just their personalities. Irma dyes her hair black, and Phoebe dyes her hair red. So now we've got, like a black hair and a blonde and a redhead, and there's a joke somewhere, but I'm going to leave it alone.
Especially since we're trying to be PG about all this.
Yeah, most of those jokes don't go PG. So the girls all rejoin the school, and then Celeste is the first one to discover Emma Frost after she was killed. So that's traumatic because she's their mother figure-ish. She's a mentor to them, even though, Esme tried to murder her, and they kind of blamed her for having for Sophie's death, and they ratted her out to Jean. They still kind of looked up to Emma in a sense, because Emma did, in her own way, care about the girls and want to take care of them. We can cover Emma at another time because she's a very complex character as well.
Yeah, we've mentioned her, obviously, with the Scott Summers episode. We mentioned her in the Sentry episode, and I'm sure she's going to continue to come up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. She's one of the main X-Men characters, in the past, I would say 20 years. So she will get referenced again and again until we find some way to shoehorn her into an episode or, just dedicate an episode to her entirely because she is worthy. So that's the background on the Cuckoos. So let's talk now about the issues. And this is something that we mentioned a little bit in the background because there are 5 identical girls. And this is something that tends to happen in real life quintuplets or real life multiple births. Each member of the group has difficulty finding their own voice, and they have problems distinguishing their individual personality amongst the gestalt, which is just a fun word to say. And it always reminds me of G1 Transformers, Devastator for the win. But this is something that we see in, as I said, not just in the comics, but we see this in real life multiples, whether it's twins, triplets, quints. The group has a collective personality, but then each individual member has their own, and you're always going to be known as part of the group. But how do you distinguish yourself as an individual? So, Doc, if you can talk a little bit about what that's like for a member of multiples to distinguish themselves.
I'm going to start, and I had given this some thought before, but I just thought of this on the fly. We actually have friends who have twins, and I know multiple people who have twins. And at one point on Facebook, their mother pointed out, please refer to them by their individual names, because so many people would say, I'm not going to say their real names, but A and B, that people would address both of them at the same time as A and B so much that the kids started to repeat A and B as if that was their name. So that's how powerful this type of bond can be, because it's usually easily detected outwardly from their physical appearance, even if they're not twins. Even sometimes when you get fraternal friends with different genders, you can tell that they're very closely linked. So it's much simpler to establish the fact that there's something that connects them. But then what's going to be the differentiating point? Is it going to be their personalities in terms of how they interact with others? Is it going to be how they interact with each other? Because we know there's no such things as siblings perfectly getting along all the time, 100%. Is it going to be their different interests in life? Is it going to be how they respond to their parents? What parts of each of their parents they're going to take here and there? Identical twins, triplets, whatever, are great to review because you technically have the same genetic makeup. So at this point, we can establish any difference for the most part as being all of the nature versus nurture situation, all of the external, all the environmental factors as being the main inputs. Is that totally true? There's some more research that indicates it may not be, but whatever, we'll go with it. So in a situation like this, where we're talking about mutants that have an incredible power that's already going to enhance their link, it's not just a matter of the basics of what we're talking about in reality. It's the fact that they can enhance that on a completely different level that no one else can understand. It's like taking a radio frequency and just turning up the amplitude as much as possible. You're going to be able to cover a wide range of topics, a wide range of abilities, and it's great that the whole is better than the sum of its parts, but the parts don't want to feel left out. How do you make sure that always happens? You're going to end up with people, especially with adolescents being the main target, you're going to end up with people dissenting just for the sake of dissenting. You got to figure something out, not necessarily just throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks, but at least getting feedback. If I do something slightly different than what everybody else does, is that going to work? Is that a positive? Is this something that I can do for the rest of my life and get good results? Or is it something that everyone's going to shun and I'm going to have to hide? And I'm actually going to have to weaken my relationship with everyone else. Maybe not intentionally, but just noticing that now all of a sudden I'm the quiet one, or I'm doing something a little different that nobody else approves of, so I have to hide it. There's so many variations on how this can go, but it all comes back to the idea that we love ourselves. In general, we want to be happy. We want to have things work on a level that isn't going to interfere with what we already have and hopefully enhances it. But at the same time, because we know things are going to change with everyone else and change with the environment, we're going to be able to adapt at some point. So you're in a rare situation if you're in that type of relationship with a twin or any multiple, that you guys can come together at some points and you can branch out at some points. You know, the world's your oyster if you do it right.
That's an interesting take on it. I like what it means for the grander scheme, that it allows, as you said, they can come together and they can go apart. It doesn't necessarily have to be limited to just multiples. That can apply to siblings as well. But because identicals or multiples are so intrinsically linked by virtue of their external appearance, that adds an additional layer on top of it. But I find that happens to siblings in general. You know, my sister and I are very close. There's things that we're exactly the same on. And then there's parts where we are, you know, worlds apart. But so there is that room for some personality differences and distinguishing factors. But by the same token, because we are connected, because we are siblings, there is that togetherness. And that's something that I think, as I said, applies to all siblings, but it especially applies to multiples, even fraternals that don't obviously share the genetic and the physical same as the Stepford Cuckoos do. So the next thing that I want to get into is the deaths of Sophie and Esme. And this is something that the girls have a lot of difficulty coping with, particularly how they died. We see that, you know, Esme carried a lot of guilt, and that's why she really went rogue from the rest of the group. And then that resulted in her death as well.
Hey, we are not discussing rogue right now. How dare you? I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
All right, easy there, sugar. This is something that the girls have to cope with. And that is not easy to do. And so I don't know if you want to get into survivor's guilt or some of the other added things that the girls have gone through as a result of their experiences and the deaths and going from 5-in-1 to 4-in-1 to 3-in-1.
We've discussed grief and loss in the past, but the additional aspect with this when it comes to losing a sibling, someone that, especially in this case, is on your level in so many ways and you share such a close, direct bond, that's incredibly powerful for anyone, obviously. But we can go back to Sophie as someone that was trying to do the ultimate good. She was supposed to be an example of a shining light in the world, trying to show not just that she was going to make an impact, but together with her sisters, they were going to do some amazing things. And she died for it. So what message does that send? You can't win, don't try? I mean, I don't think that's fair, but it's a possibility that a person can respond that way. What was she doing to obtain that goal? She was using an external source. She was using a substance. She basically was trying to really enhance things above and beyond what anyone would have expected. And it was because of one of her own sisters that she was doing this. I'm going to take it aside and bring it to the real world. For example, if someone's dealing you substances and that person dies, at least where we are, you can be charged with manslaughter or murder. That's a pretty big deal. It's not something to be taken lightly. So it shows, okay, push the envelope, do everything you can, and you're going to suffer. That's not exactly a positive message to glean from something like that. We mentioned that the survivors blamed Emma. So once again, literally, genetically, the mother figure of all of this. She was a teacher. She was supposed to be telling them do the right thing, and this is the result. So now it's, can you trust anyone? It just starts to really fall apart in that sense. And it can create a scenario where, let's say even, you survive, and obviously Esme died kind of going off on her own, but let's say you have siblings and you've already established that you may not have the exact same goals, or maybe you do have like similar paths, but despite having such similar genetics, one is advancing more than the other in their particular field. Does that mean that the other sibling is like less of a person? Does that mean that they're somehow a failure? They're not using their tools right, even though they started with the same toolbox? That doesn't sound fair to me, but that may be what they're going through. So in addition to the loss of another person, they're admitting that a part of them just died. A part of them has gone away, and they're not going to be able to get it back. So does that mean they have less to work with? Once again, everyone's their own individual. That doesn't automatically sound fair, but it's still within the realm of possibility of how someone can react. How do you move forward with that? Do you say that you're going to, quote unquote, pick up the slack and honor the person's memory by doing what they did? Are you going to just kind of, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally bury that part and just not think about it anymore? After all, technically, they have, 995 other siblings that never got the chance, right? So there's so many ways you can go with this, but I wonder if they had the opportunity, in the comics they did, how would they respond to the ones that died? Would they say that they missed them? Would they say that they made a mistake? Would they say, we're continuing to do what you did? So many ways to go with it. I just, really think they hit the crux, though, of pointing out it's never going to be finished. It's never going to be over when it comes to mourning and grief, but it changes over time. And thinking positively, it does get better.
Yeah, I want to bring it back, though, to something you mentioned, I guess, about halfway through that part where you were discussing the notion that one of the siblings can advance farther than the other. And I think that's an interesting topic to discuss because particularly with identicals, whether they be twins or triplets, what have you, if you have the smart one or the athletic one, they're genetically exactly the same. But if one of them is succeeding in a path, say you have a pair of identical twins and one of them is a B student and one of them is an A student. Well, now it's not due to any inherent ability. It's due to work ethic and the impact that can have on the, I don't want to say the dumber one because it's not a matter of being dumber, but it's the one who's not achieving as much. That's really going to have a potentially detrimental impact. Or if you have one who's incredibly gifted athletically and one who's incredibly gifted academically, but the smart one isn't as good at sports and the sporty one isn't quite as good at, in the classroom. That's going to have an impact. That's something that, frankly, we could have an hour-long discussion on just in general and with some real life examples, but I'm not going to, belabor the point. But I think that's a very fascinating thing. And I'm glad you brought that up because maybe we could discuss that in greater detail at a later time, either on the website or in an essay, or if you're listening and you happen to be a twin, let us know. Send us an email, capesonthecouch@gmail.com, or message us on Facebook or Twitter and let us know, are you the smart one? Or, if you're a twin or a multiple, are you the smart one? Are you the sporty one? Are you the less athletically inclined one? What's your scenario like? What's your situation? And discuss that with, us and let us know what your relationship is like with your siblings, your twins, the rest of the multiples. So that's something. I know we talk about the comic book characters and there's obviously the fantastic powers that aren't relatable, but having twins or having multiples is something that we can obviously all definitely relate to. Mentioning earlier, you were talking about the friend of ours with the twin boys. I know exactly the situation you're talking about because even my own, I never referred to them collectively or individually as A and B, but, that's so-and-so and she's the mother of A and B because they're a pair.
Yep. And
thankfully, she gives them different haircuts because they are otherwise absolutely identical. So I know B usually is the one who ends up with the bangs. So that helps.
Yep.
They're great boys. So now last thing I want to mention, and this isn't so much of an issue, but I want to mention their personality quirks because each of the girls ended up being defined by a particular personality trait. And we can discuss the impact that it has on the collective and the sort of, I guess, the five humors or what's that called?
The four humors.
The four humors.
Yeah, of medicine that turned out to not really be
sanguine and so on, and how they impact the personality traits.
Yeah, which turned out to be total bunk, but still was a great, philosophical exercise, as this is going to be.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have some fun with this.
So Sophie was the dominant one. And Phoebe's aggressive. Irma, Mindee, she's kind of laid back. Celeste is timid, but she's a little haughty. And Esme is the conniving one. So Sophie and Esme in particular, as the Esme being the conniving one, she's the one who got Sophie to use the kick and amp up her powers. And Sophie being the very dominant one, she was sort of the leader of the group. And she was the first one to fall. And that had an impact on the rest of the group. So that's a very interesting mix of personality traits. And if you can, I guess, if you want to talk a little bit about what that's like and what that combination can do and lead to.
All right. We got great combinations to work with. I'm going to probably focus mostly on pairs because once you get into the higher numbers, it can get a little weird. Although, having just said that, I might start with 3, meaning if you got a laid-back person who basically is going to go with whatever you guys are saying, like the general gestalt, and then you get someone that really thinks they're above the fray, but still wants to in some way participate, and then you get someone that can be the manipulator, you could have this uprising of those 3 against the other 2, one of whom is willing to be the saber, and the other one who clearly is the leader holding it. So you can get some real battles there. Wow, I managed to incorporate all 5 in one. That's fantastic.
Good job, Doc. It's almost like you know what you're talking about.
Thanks. I need that once in a while. We can have a situation where you have the lieutenant trying to become the captain.
The Starscream.
As soon as I said it, I knew you were going to mention it.
Well, because it's a TV trope. Link, that's the name of it, is the Starscream, the lieutenant who thinks, if only I were in command.
Right. You have a situation, as Esme showed, where you can have that one dissenter that's just trying to just worm their way however they can to get what they want, no matter who they're dealing with. You can have a situation where, and I'm actually going to go ahead and be selfish and insert myself here. If you have a laid back person, it doesn't mean they're a doormat all the time. They can be this nice bendable reed, and you're just pulling and pulling and pulling, thinking, oh yeah, you got them down. And once their other parts of their personality come through, they snap right back. So be very, very careful with that. These are general principles. That doesn't mean that people don't have other aspects that you really don't want to see.
You're scaring me a little now, Doc.
Nah, that's okay. It's all cool. See, there you go. Perfect example. Mostly laid back, but, be careful because they can snap. You can have situations...
Trust me, if you were going to snap at me, you'd have done it by now.
Very true. Very true. You could have situations where, you have someone where they want to see if they can create more of a team aspect of things and be like this fantastic leader, but everyone else just kind of goes their own way and they're left with just one person, usually the laid back one, because they're like, it sounds like a good idea. And you have some people that really, really, really just wish all of this would go away so that they could sit on their throne and just let people know just how good they are. What I'm talking about specifically is if Celeste ever really got to that point where she were in charge, it would, you would see the caste system, basically. But yeah, these are all possibilities. I'm sure there are tons more. I'm not making this an exhaustive list. So if anyone else has other feedback that they've seen amongst themselves, amongst their groups of friends, amongst coworkers, their own family, we'd certainly like that feedback and have that type of chat too.
Yeah, I would say that, among our group of friends, the 4, if you will, I would say I would probably be the dominant one. I think that's a fair assessment. You would be the laid back, I guess. I don't know, D and R. I don't know where exactly they would fall on this.
R is aggressive. Oh no, I got that. R is aggressive.
I was going to say he's probably the aggressive.
And here's the thing. I wouldn't call D like timid and haughty. That's not fair. That's really not
him at all.
Definitely not haughty. And definitely, honestly, I wouldn't say timid. I would say intellectual, like rational, like practical, just incredibly pragmatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the 4 of us don't necessarily line up with the same quality traits of the cuckoos, but we have our own 4 very interesting and unique personalities, and we're all dominant in a certain aspect or in a certain way, but it just I guess, I don't know, somehow I ended up as the leader or the spokesman of the group. I won't necessarily say the leader, but I'm the spokesman of the group.
Yes, that's
probably because I have the biggest mouth.
Yeah.
But D, and I've mentioned this to him before, I respect D because he will call me out if he thinks I'm being too over the top. He reins me in a lot. And I respect that.
Meanwhile, more often than not, I'm the person that kind of becomes this amplifier for you. Like, if I think that you've hit on something, I will just go ahead and take it to the nth degree, which, seems to startle people because it's like, well, where'd that come from? I'm like, no, I get it. Like I said, I'll be the sounding board. I'll be the one that, reflects everything, and all of a sudden it becomes amplified. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and it works. Hell, we're very good friends, and we've remained so for quite some time. So
yeah, it's how you end up with an anonymous psychiatrist doing a podcast with his best friend who clearly knows what he's doing when it comes to broadcasting.
Again, we're an interesting bunch. So treatment. Let's start as we always do with the in-universe. You are trying to treat 5 telepaths who can turn their bodies into diamonds. We'll even go with just the 3. So you're dealing with 3 telepaths who can turn their bodies into diamonds.
You know what I'm asking for. Give me the helmet.
You're going to start with Magneto's helmet.
Yep. No question. I'm not even entertaining this if I don't have that doggone helmet.
So having established that you are wearing the helmet, which I think in and of itself is going to be a trigger for them, how do you treat them?
Very, very carefully. I want to keep this as individual as possible for my safety, mainly because I don't need their combined psychic powers to overwhelm me. And I think it would be best to start with whoever I thought, in all honesty, is the most stable. I don't even know how to establish that per se because they've all gone through so much, but I want to know their individual unique stories, and I want to know what they think the positive aspects of who they are as their own person compared to how they think the group is doing. Because they may not all agree on this, and if there's too much dissent, I don't need, just basically a whole bunch of people arguing back and forth. Ultimately, yes, getting them as a group is important, but I want to do it on my terms, and I want to do it on positive footing, because trying to piece it out ahead of time might cause more problems. I'd be surprised if they would all even agree to the therapy, because I can definitely see when you get enough people saying you need help, you need help, you need help, someone's going to dissent. Honestly, you only need 2 people and one of them's usually going to dissent, which is okay because I'm not big on always doing group therapies or couples therapies, but it's almost a guarantee with 3. But if they're able to see that there's some progress made with 1 or 2 of them, then I think I could get the 3rd one to join in. And you notice I'm not giving individual names because I don't know who it would be. Sometimes we have these preconceived notions of therapy that, oh yeah, I know that person's going to do well, or I know that person is not going to be interested. I don't. There's really no hint other than the person just giving you the finger from the start. But other than that, honestly, it's not going to be that much different in universe than out of universe, except when it comes to their diamond bodies or whatever, they were described as perfect as opposed to Emma Frost, who has an imperfect diamond body. I would wonder if, for the greater good, there would be a way to do something synergistically, like instead of just turning their bodies solid or whatever, like, are they able to create, along with their telepathic abilities, like matrices, like just giant barriers or walls or structures that could help things or that sort of thing? Like, see if I could enhance what they already have in a positive way and hopefully not have it just start showing literally cracks in the walls in terms of their personalities.
Interesting. I think that the matrices in particular sound fascinating just from an artistic standpoint. And I think if something could be done with that, it would be beneficial to mankind for strength, obviously for diamonds, but also just in beauty. I think that could be cool. But again, this is never actually really going to happen, but it's just nice to speculate. So out of universe, real world, real talk, triplets who were part of quintuplets. 2 of them died under less than ideal circumstances. Now you're dealing with 3. How do you talk to them?
I do start similarly, and this is a situation where the goals of group and individual start to parse out a little bit. Regardless of if they're triplets or whatever, everyone has their own way to grieve. I'm going to have to figure out what that is for each of them and lead them down an appropriate path so that they get the most out of it. Some people prefer to get out physical energy. They start to exercise more. They go on nature hikes. They, just want to be perhaps by themselves. They want to do things alone. Some people want the immediate support of their family and may wonder why their siblings aren't coming together more and want to do things with other family members and really have the deep conversations about how things are going, reminisce about the good times. Some people just have no idea and are just in a complete ball of rage and crying and whatever, and they need music and they just want to really just get it out any way they can, may turn to some unfortunate negative alternatives, alcohol, substances, and not understand that there are other ways to do it. And I have to introduce those to them. The idea of bringing all of that together and having each of them talk about it, almost like a survivors of death, survivors of suicide, whatever the case may be. And just, having each person have their say in the setting of knowing that they're going to continue to be together in some format. That's all important. In terms of the order that it happens, I think it stands from the previous statement. In that case, it's okay to start with the group if that gets everyone at least initially invested. There's a greater chance. So if we're talking specifically about the grief, all right, whatever it takes. How do you want to do this? Do you want to do this meet every week? Do you want to do this over Skype or telemedicine? It's the official thing. We don't use Skype because that's not as secured, But anyway, point being, we try and meet the person where they are in the particular circumstance. Try and see if everyone is on the same page. If they're not, figure out how we get them on the same page and then break it out, go individual. How are you going to handle your grief in a productive way that's not going to end up destroying the whole?
Very well said. I think it's very important that we have these discussions about how we handle grief, because obviously that's a human thing. That's not stuck to just multiples. We all experience grief. We all experience loss, and we have to cope with it in a hopefully healthy way. Whether, as you said, whether it turns to exercise or art, or whether it's bringing people together, grief has a very powerful effect on all of us. And it's how we channel that and what do we do with that energy. We were just having a conversation not that long ago about what do we do with this energy. And okay, this happened to me, this external stimuli that I could not control. But what I can control is my response to the stimulus. And what is that going to be? And that's something that I've tried to do in my life over the past 10 or so years is the knowledge and understanding that I can't control everything else. That's why I wear a bracelet on my wrist that says it is what it is, because I understand and acknowledge that there's only so many things I can control, and that I can only control what I can control. And that once you come to that understanding, everything else becomes that much simpler, because you don't fret over trying to solve all of the world's problems yourself. You can just try and make your sphere of influence as positive as it can possibly be. So I think that's what the girls need to understand, or, the real life equivalent of the Stepford Cuckoos, however you want to phrase it, the out of universe. And that's something that we can all stand, I think, to do better with, is accept what we can and change what we can and go from there.
As opposed to in universe, in which case I would say to them, hey, the world is now diamonds. Sorry.
So let's take all of this and let's get you your helmet, and let's see what happens when we get the Stepford Cuckoos on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, girls. I'm Dr. Issues.
Hello, Doctor.
Normally I don't do a group session, but given your abilities and personalities, I thought it best to see how you interact with each other first before splitting off individually.
Oh, so you can pick us off and see which one of us is the weakest? Come on, Phoebe, he didn't mean it that way.
Thank you,
Irma, but you can call me Mindee.
Thank you, Mindee. You're right, it's not about determining weaknesses. In fact, I consider you all very strong women in your own right. I just want to assess who each of you are.
Don't we get the opportunity to do the same? Take off that silly helmet and let us poke around inside your head.
If it's all the same, I'll keep this on. At least, I made sure it didn't look like his helmet. Even if it serves the same function.
You mean Magneto?
I was trying to get through this without using his name, but yes, I just wanted to speak to you girls without interference.
Are you afraid of what we'll find?
Oh, goodness, no. I assumed it would simplify the process if I was protected. Unfortunately, it seems you're just distracted by the helmet, so if I took it off as a show of goodwill and you give me a quick scan to show I'm not hiding anything, can we move along?
Yes.
All right. Okay, the helmet's off. We just have time for a quick...
Oh, you're an interesting memories you have.
Are you done?
Almost. Just a bit more.
I have to say, this feels strange. It's almost like I can feel you poking around inside my brain.
You wanted it done quickly. That means we can't be subtle. Okay, girls, I think we've made our point. He's clean.
Wow, that was not pleasant.
I'm sorry, Doctor. My sisters can be a little rough sometimes. They mean well... Mostly. Oh, stop kissing up to him, Celeste. I'm not. You always do this. You make us look bad so you can come out smelling like a rose.
Ladies, this is not a competition. I'm sure you all have your unique issues to discuss.
Can I talk about how Celeste is an ass kisser? Can I talk about how Phoebe is a bitch? Can I talk about how you two need to shut the hell up? Can we talk about how no one likes Mindee?
Can I talk about the fact that you need to focus on yourselves instead of criticizing each other?
You need to watch your tone, Doctor. There's three of us and only one of you.
Point well taken. I just want to make some progress.
We've been doing just fine without you, Doctor. Yes, because everything has been peachy keen since Sophie and Esme died. Why'd you have to bring them up? Now he's going to ask all sorts of questions about them. What? It's the truth. We were great as five, but with them gone, things have gotten harder. Speak for yourself. I'm doing just fine.
Wait, I'm confused. So is this a problem or not?
Yes.
No? Okay, just another reason why I need to know how each of you handle difficult situations individually.
I think you're getting a pretty good idea at the moment.
I see. So let's keep up with this yes-no system. I like this. Do you still grieve the losses of Sophie and Esme?
Of course. Have you lost a part of yourself before, Doctor? Not just a sibling or a close family member, but an actual part of you?
I can't say that I have.
Then you have no idea what our situation is like. No idea how we grieve. No idea how we've managed to get along. I know we bicker and fight. What sisters don't? Hell, what siblings don't? But at the end of the day, we were five. And now we're three. Our only concern is making sure we don't lose any more of each other than we already have.
Is there a way I can help you do that?
Can you bring them back? Phoebe, come on.
Look, I can do so much, but I'm not the one with abilities.
Then we'll deal with it. Phoebe, he's really trying. We've scanned him. He honestly wants to help. Then he can leave us alone and let us do our thing.
I'd like to ask if I could just work with Phoebe right now because, I'd like to focus on the one who's... No offense, but the point of greatest resistance at this point to treatment.
So you are trying to divide us. Phoebe, knock it off. Oh, blow it out your ass, Mindee. Hey, don't talk to her like that. Why does it seem like I'm the only one who sees the reality in all this? Why are you always the one who's so quick to jump to the worst case scenario? Because someone has to replace Sophie.
I'm sorry, but would you like a tissue?
I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from. Phoebe, why didn't you tell us you felt this way? Because Celeste worries all the time, and you pretend like you don't care about anything, but I know that you do. And one of us has to be the strong one. That was Sophie, but now that she's gone, there was a void. So I filled it. I did it for you two.
Wow, that's powerful. You've really held that in for a long time, huh?
I guess I did. And I have to say, it feels good to get it out.
There's no shame in that. There's no weakness in that.
Not with you, but I guarantee you there are outsiders who want to use that against us. You may not want to divide us, but others do, so we have to defend ourselves.
And I realize that you've been working hard at this. But let's work smart about it, too. You can't just wall yourself off from the rest of the world, including yourselves.
Thank you, Doctor. We really appreciate it. Yes, you've been most helpful. I guess this was productive after all.
So I assume you'll come back for more sessions?
Definitely.
Okay, great. We'll do individual sessions so I can really get some one-on-one time with each of you. I'll start with Phoebe.
Oh, sure. She puts on the big sob session and now she gets first crack. Excuse me? I just had a legitimate epiphany and you're mocking me? She wasn't mocking you, Phoebe. She was just joking, right, Mindy? This happens every single time we have to do drama quotes. Everything always in my face. Never something I get stuck in.
So how'd it go?
In all honesty, remember that Sweet Valley High reference?
Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine that and I'm the only guy.
I never read the book, so I don't know how it ended up for any of them.
To be honest with you, neither do I. It just sounded like the right thing to say.
All right, that's fair, I suppose. I can't hate on you for that. So that's going to do it for this episode. Next week is the Walking Dead listener poll episode. Are we going to cover Rick Grimes, Negan, or the governor? And yes, I know you're going to say Negan because that's what you want, Doc. I want Rick. Does anybody want the governor?
I was going to say, you know what? We might end up with a backlash and the governor just ends up winning out of nowhere.
That could happen. They're all very compelling and interesting characters in their own right. But it's up to you, the listeners, to decide who we cover. So get your votes in now. The form is on our website, capesonthecouch.live. It is also available on at the top of our Twitter feed. Capes on the Couch is the Twitter handle. We've got a Facebook page. The link is on there. So be sure to get your votes in. The voting closes midnight Saturday. So you've only got a couple of days left to get those votes in. And then we will make the determination and you'll find out. I guess we'll make the announcement on Sunday who we're covering, and then you'll know who that week's episode is going to be about. So that's going to be that one. The following week is going to be our president level Patreon, the first of two back-to-back president level Patreon picked episodes. Brian picked Hank Henshaw, which works out with the CW coming back and Supergirl. And then the following week, Vandal Savage, because Matt wants Vandal Savage, and that works well with Legends of Tomorrow. And then the following week after that, we're going to finally get around to Ra's al Ghul.
Boo. No, I'm kidding. I like Ra's al Ghul as well.
So I know we've booted him twice, and that's really been unfortunate. It's certainly nothing against the character. It just unfortunately worked out that way.
Yeah, the good news is, as a character, I'm sure he has the patience to wait.
Yes, this is very true. Raish has nothing if not time and patience. So that's going to be the next slate of our upcoming episodes. So if you have any questions that you want answered about those characters, be sure to send us an email, capesonthecouch@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. We have the aforementioned Patreon page, patreon.com/capesonthecouch. You can subscribe at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels. $1 gets you a shout out and a thank you. $3 gets you early access to the downloads. $5 gets you the extended uncensored version of the skit every week, plus guarantee that any questions you have will be answered. And if you are the $10 patron like Matt and Brian, you can select one episode a month that we cover, and any questions that you have will be answered by us. And that's just about going to do it. Doc, you got anything else you want to add?
At this point, I just want to remind people that siblings are the closest thing you have to built-in friends, so cherish it every day.
Absolutely. I second that with my sister as well. So for Doc Issues, I'm Anthony Sitko. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.